In this series, we use two models to explore the history of workflow: the 3 ages of work and the dual revolutions. With the first model, we divided the history of work into 3 ages: the agricultural age, the industrial age, and the information age. We distinguish these ages from each other by their unique combination of values across the 5 categories of space, time, tools, products, and speed. In the second model, that of the dual revolutions, we zoomed into the industrial and information ages and examined their parallel 2-phase pattern. We used the historical transition between the first and the second industrial revolutions as a reference point to do 3 things. 1, to recognize the fact that we are undergoing a similar revolution in the information age. 2, to diagnose the environmental factors that have kicked the information age into overdrive. And 3, to draw up a roadmap for thriving in this particularly challenging point in history. Let's now conclude this series by synthesizing everything into 3 workflow principles. Ready? Let's go. Number 1, workflow is an ancient reality, not a modern invention. Without realizing it, we can develop a myopic view of history. The present moment becomes the golden standard. Everything is measured and weighed in relation to the present age. And more than that, it is often found wanting. When this happens, the past not only becomes degraded, but it also starts to fade away. We begin to think that our current situation is so unique that there is no precedent to work from. We're starting from scratch. Caught up in the excitement of modern technological developments, there is the danger of viewing our current time as the only time of invention. We see the previously unimaginable become possible, and it can fill our lungs and mind with an air of superiority. As an example, while writing this series, I came across this ad from a productivity software business called Motion, which proposes that all management of your calendar should be outsourced to an algorithm. Now, I recognize that this ad is a little tongue-in-cheek, but it does leave a certain impression or taste in the mouth. Honestly, it reminded me of the flex tape meme. Just blindly slap technology over any problem and bam, it's all fixed. And in addition to this naive view of technology as that which only ever improves and optimizes whatever it touches, there is the scoffing at those who came before us, an assumption that they didn't achieve much because their tools were simpler. In reality, ingenuity is part of the very essence of mankind, not just modern man. I was just this is going to seem staged, but I was just profoundly reminded about this the day before the production of the series. And it was because of what's on this bookshelf here. So I was waiting for a call that was scheduled, and it got delayed for a couple different reasons. Okay, I found myself in the office, and I didn't want to just like open up a tab and mindlessly go somewhere. So I thought, okay, I'm going to stay in the room. And this series of books, I don't know if you can see this second shelf, but at least on the first shelf, you see some of these, okay? I inherited this series of books back when I was teaching in a middle school. And I was ending my time there. And, school year's ending, the janitors are kind of going through and just like clearing the place out. And another teacher had already left, and they were taking this teacher's book. So this entire series, 34 volumes, great book series, about to get thrown out. And I was like, yo, can I have that? Right? Okay, well, I take this series home. This is 7 years ago, something like that. I've always thought that this was basically just a collection of important books. That by itself would be really cool. What I discovered, this is like literally 2 days ago, at least from the time of this recording, it is so much more than just a collection of great books. In the beginning of the series, volumes 2 and 3, there's something called the Syntopicon. Syntopicon. Never heard of that word before, but syn, like synthesis, bringing together, and topicon, bringing together of topics. What this is the scholars that put together this series of books pulled together a list roughly of 100 concepts or ideas. And what you can do is you can look up any of these concepts: good and evil, government, fate, knowledge, justice, infinity, whatever. And they'll give you key texts from across, like the 24 centuries of the great Western tradition, in which you can dive in and explore what the great thinkers have said on that particular topic. That is fascinating. It's important for us to recognize that people were doing deep, integrated thinking before there was software that supported that kind of thinking. And that's just one example. Look, walking through the ages of work, we see how creative humans have been in their constant adaptation, their development of ways to engage with and order the world around them. This removes a potentially, mystical or esoteric veil around workflow. Workflow is not a secret ability that technology has enabled for the first time. It's not a dangerous and unknown path that we should only entrust to the experts. It's always within arm's reach. It is natural to us, not foreign. Our ancestors practiced it, and we can too. If you're like me, you might catch yourself overcomplicating things. The 3 ages of work teaches us that workflow doesn't have to be complicated. The path forward is simpler than we think, and if we're given the mental space and time to think, we can come up with solutions to problems. The core skills are innate. We already have them. The biggest relief is not going to be found in a new tool, but in a realignment of our work, our tools, and our environment with our nature. And that leads us to workflow principle number 2. Number 2, there's a current, and sound workflow never swims against it. We touched on this when referencing Newport's call out of the, quote, unfortunate mismatch between our modern tools and our ancient brains, unquote. Remember the exercise we did in which we imagined the act of thinking? That exercise introduced us to the embodied nature of our cognition. The principle of knowledge is in the senses. We aren't ghosts, we're humans. And our thinking should be an integrated activity that involves our bodies. This helps explain why navigating the second digital revolution of the information age is particularly challenging. When we graph out the macro trends across the 3 ages of work, we see a consistent increase in speed and abstraction. While the pace of work is continually increasing, its sensorial nature is continually decreasing. This doesn't mean we're doomed, but it does mean that we need to create structures to support this kind of unnatural work. We can't continue to just trudge forward and ignore our need for a sensorial connection with our work. It's just not sustainable. It reminds me of a funny story a friend of mine shared with me. When traveling in Africa, he was given a canoe to cross a river. There was a problem though, and that is that the canoe had a bunch of holes in it and would immediately take in water if put in the river. So, what was the solution for that situation? Well, when he was handed an oar, he was also handed a cup. As work becomes increasingly more remote, asynchronous, and virtual, we need to invest in a new canoe. We can't simply hand each other cups in the form of meditation breaks or half-baked wellness tools like site blockers, time trackers, or focus blocks scheduled in our calendar by bots. We need to take seriously again our physical environment. The hype of being a digital nomad is beginning to settle. If we're working from home, have we intentionally set up a specific place to work? Are we allowing notifications to sporadically grab our eyes and ears throughout the day? Or are we intentionally ordering when those notifications are given our attention? Even if it's unrelated to our profession, are we regularly engaging in some type of manual activity to maintain and nurture a healthy connection with nature? Are we orienting ourselves with the context of time by visually mapping out our days and our weeks? This recognition of our ancient brains also brought up the importance of integrating into workflow fields of study that are normally not associated with things like productivity or personal knowledge management. We specifically called out anthropology and erotology as essential fields of study. Yes, there is a current in place already. It's our nature. Workflow doesn't attempt to fight that current or create a new one. It rides it. It recognizes that limitations paradoxically can be freeing. This quote from G.K. Chesterton is one of my favorite writers. Puts it perfectly, so we'll let him have the last word on this second principle. In his book, Orthodoxy, he writes the following. We might fancy some children playing on the flat, grassy top of some tall island in the sea. So long as there was a wall around the cliff's edge, they could fling themselves into every frantic game and make the place the noisiest of nurseries. But the walls were knocked down, leaving the naked peril of the precipice. They did not fall over, but when their friends returned to them, they were all huddled in terror in the center of the island, and their song had ceased. Number 3, workflow is a whole, not a hack. In studying the effects tools have on the space, time, products, and speed of work, we better understand Neil Postman's observation that technological change is not additive, it is ecological. Well, this is not only true of technological change, it's also true of workflow. There's sometimes a tendency to approach productivity as a package of hacks that we can kind of staple together. If we're not mindful, we can treat these hacks like self-contained pills that we sort of like swallow and allow for them to kind of do their thing. It's important that we cultivate a holistic understanding of workflow, of its implementation, and of its scope. You want to develop your music career? What's your bedtime? Are you stressed at work? Let's explore that tension between you and your spouse. Are you experiencing writer's block? How are you using your free time? Are you primarily consuming or creating? Are you struggling to maintain focus? What's your exercise routine like? We also want to continually stretch our vision of workflow and what this art can be applied to. Are you, for example, limiting workflow to just efficiency? If so, try to remember that it includes things like autonomy, mindfulness, and charity. Are you limiting workflow to execution? Try to remember that workflow touches on things such as ideation, divergent thinking, but also learning when to say no to things. Does vacation fit under your umbrella of workflow? How about daddy-daughter dates, surprise birthday parties, or tension with my teenager? When you imagine people practicing this art, who are you imagining? Corporate executives, stay-at-home moms, teenagers, newlyweds? Workflow is a whole, not a hack. Oh, okay, we made it. It's been quite the journey. Did you hear something new in this series? Did anything particular resonate with you? Did something challenge an idea that you already had in your head? Have you been inspired? If you found this series helpful, would you mind doing 2 things to help other people benefit from it as well? First is liking this video and subscribing to this channel. This appeases the algorithm gods from on high and lets them know that this content is worth recommending to others. Second, word of mouth always means so much, and really the most. Maybe you have a specific friend or family member that would appreciate the series. Now, I don't know if that's because they really need it or they're already into it and right, it'll resonate with them. I'll let you make that call. But workflow as a formally recognized art is really still in its infancy. And personally telling someone else about it really helps raise awareness of it and gets the concept a little bit more into mainstream conversation. By the way, I realize at the end here, I haven't introduced myself. So my name is Andy Hickman. I'm a personal workflow coach. I specialize in helping individuals habituate 4 behaviors. These are for cultivating and executing your thought. Within the art, we call these 4 behaviors collecting, processing, moving, and reflecting. I've written a story about these behaviors, and it goes into all the nuts and bolts, practical tips, examples, yada, yada, yada. This comes in the form of a weekly email, a single email every week. And that way, you're making progress through the theory, but you're like, it's not like a fire hose, that's like got turned on, you're like drowning in it. Anyway, it seems to be a pretty good combination of content and speed. You can read that story in its entirety for free by going to artofworkflow.com. Again, that's artofworkflow.com. If you want to dive deeper, but reading isn't like your preferred medium, I provide high-touch cohort-based coaching. What does this look like? It looks like you joining a small intentional group of 9 other people on this exciting journey of mastering this art. It's very key that you do this with a group of people that can hold you accountable. That helps the process not only be more effective, but also just more fun. To ensure rapid mastery, the program, which is, by the way, all live, get that pre-recorded stuff out of here. It blends learning and one-on-one instruction. So this is not, it's kind of crazy within the history of online education here. There's a surge of cohort-based courses, and all those are not created equal. You are not being brought in here in a huge, group of 100,000 plus people. We intentionally and strictly cap enrollment at 10 people. So, and then you also have this balancing of group sessions, but also a ton of one-on-one time. So it's a blend of pure learning and one-on-one instruction. The program includes one-on-one sessions. These are hour-long sessions with me and or my wife. You choose which one. Some like to jump back and forth between us every month. Anyway, we have a lot of fun. If you're interested in that, you can send me an email at andy@artofworkflow.com, and we can connect there. We typically do 4 cohorts a year, so there's 4 different times in the year that you could join in on the fun and see if it works with your schedule. If you'd rather connect somewhere else other than email, feel free to reach out to me on social media. I'm on these respective platforms. I'll display my handles on the screen here if you want to connect there. Awesome, cool. I will see you in the next series, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.